Welcome back. In the Western Cape, it's emerged there's still hundreds of children who haven't been placed in a school because there seems to be no place for them in a classroom. The organisation Equal Education saying it's now actually engaging in court action to force the Provincial Education Department to find places for these learners. Kimberly Khumalo is a researcher at Equal Education. Kimberly, good afternoon to you. How big is this problem in the Western Cape? How many children still don't have school places there?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers at home. So Equal Education and the Equal Education Law Centre have been involved in the admissions work in the Western Cape as well as in Gauteng for quite some time now. And what we're seeing is that both provinces have an online admission system, and this system does work in placing most learners into schools by the time the school year begins. But a lot of learners are still left behind, particularly learners that apply late to be in schools in those provinces, as well as learners who appeal where they have been placed for school. So it's the minority of learners within these provinces, but it is still very important for every learner to access basic education. And we believe that it doesn't matter even if it's just one learner that's out of school as a result of the failures of government. It is really unfair and really unlawful. So we are back in court to try and seek that all learners should be placed in school, particularly because we are going into the second term, onto the third term now of the school year, and some learners are still not in school.
Why does the department not have the space it needs? Has it explained why it doesn't have the places it should have?
Well, from our engagements with the departments, they have time and time again cited that they are doing absolutely everything that they can to place learners. And they've also pointed to the fact that some of these applications are extremely late, meaning they come in once the school year has already begun. But what we're saying is that there simply isn't enough proactive planning to deal with these late applications, because they will happen every year. We know that we live in a socio-economic context that where marginalized groups have certain situations that happen to them for them to apply late. We've heard from parents, for example, around issues with a death in the family and a learner abruptly having to move, or unemployment, and that then triggers abrupt movement. So it's important that departments like the Western Cape Education Department plan proactively for this, because it happens every single year. And it's simply unfair to say that they're doing everything they can and they're leaving learners out of school for 2 or 3 terms.
I mean, we know that our cities are seeing more and more people coming into urban areas. It doesn't matter whether you talk eThekwini, Gauteng, Cape Town. Has Cape Town seen a particular surge? Has there been a particular movement? Is there any reason why it seems this year in 2024 there is a sudden problem?
This problem is not sudden. So it's happened for quite a number of years, as I've stated in the beginning. So we know, like you're pointing out, with urbanization and the deindustrialization of rural areas, a lot of people are forced to move to urban areas. And with also taking into account things like unemployment, people move to urban areas. So it's unfair for this to simply keep happening, and for the powers that be to pretend that everything will be okay, or they are planning the way that they would have planned 10, 20 years ago. Times are changing, and due to urbanization, more and more learners are having to move to urban areas. So it's important that more proactive planning happens in those contexts in order to really cater to the learners that are coming in. And this is not just in terms of providing infrastructure, such as mobile classrooms, as well as providing teachers. It's also ensuring that all of these resources go to the right places where learners are moving to. So if the bulk of learners, for example, we are, in our case, we speak to the Metro East district, and this is where these communities are largely Black, and a lot of schools are not being built in those areas. So regardless of the fact that the Western Cape Education Department, for example, has the Rapid Schools Builds program, it's important for them to then think about which context needs these things more urgently.
In other words, they've got to place them in the right place. You're suggesting they're maybe not building schools in the right places now.
Yes.
So go on.
Yeah, what we're seeing is that although this program is very helpful, where the learners that are most marginalized and where learners are moving to, because it might be a bit more affordable to move to those areas, the schools are not being built fast enough. and they are not being prioritized.
Okay. The problem with this, and I mean there are many problems, is that for the learners themselves, it's the 29th of April now. So they've missed a term. They're now missing their second term. They still need to go to school. So a child's supposed to go start school in year 7, and when the year they turn 7, suddenly only start school next year. But the overcrowding problem only builds upon itself, right? In other words, there needs to be some kind of solution now. They need to solve this year, because next year it'll only be worse. Would that be the correct understanding?
Yes, so the reason why we went to urgent court around this is not just to place these learners in schools, but also to ensure that there are remedial catch-up plans provided to these learners, because we know a big chunk of the school year is already gone, but also to speak to the Western Cape Education Department to think about putting together an investigative report as to why this keeps happening, so that we can properly analyze what the situation is, what the crisis is being caused by, and therefore hopefully solve it for the oncoming years. The second part of our court application, which we will speak to later in the year, speaks to more of the systemic issues and trying to change that, trying to ensure that, for example, the Western Cape Education Department's admissions policy speaks to late applications and what that looks like for learners in 2025 and going forward. So we do really think about the fact that these learners have already missed a huge chunk of school, and it will probably happen again next year if we don't act proactively in nipping it in the bud.